My name's Ryan Carter. I'm 26, and I moved to Chicago just a couple of weeks ago after graduating from law school in a small Midwest town. Chicago still feels like it's too big for me. Tall buildings scraping the sky, people moving fast like they are chasing something important. Even the air feels louder here. I rented a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Lakeview. Nothing fancy. A view of the lake on good days and a stack of unpacked boxes in the corner every day. It's cheap enough for a newbie like me, but it feels empty at night. Tomorrow is my first day at Vasur, Monroe & Associates, one of the top law firms in the city. I fought hard for that job, and now that it's here, I can feel the nerves crawling up my spine. What if I can't keep up? What if I mess up and get sent packing back home? What if I am not cut out for a place like this? To shake the anxiety, I took a late-night walk along the Chicago River. The air was crisp, the kind that bites at your cheeks. City lights reflected off the water, like shattered glass. It was close to midnight, and the streets were quieter than during the day, but still alive with distant traffic and muffled laughter from bars. I zipped up my hoodie and shoved my hands in my pockets, trying to breathe. Law school had been hard. Endless nights studying, scraping by, no real social life. Moving here felt like a fresh start, but also like stepping onto a tightrope with no net. I turned into Lincoln Park, and that's when I heard it. A frantic barking. Sharp, desperate, like something scared and alone. I stopped and scanned the shadows. Then a golden retriever burst from the bushes and darted across the path. Its eyes were wide with panic, and it zigzagged like it didn't know where to go. A car horn blared as it ran toward the street, and tires screeched. Without thinking, I sprinted. "Hey, buddy, come here," I called, my voice echoing in the empty park. The dog paused for half a second, ears perked, then bolted again. I ran harder, my shoes slapping the pavement. Another car sped past, and my stomach dropped. I lunged and grabbed the dog's collar just in time. It yelped and squirmed, but I held on and dropped to one knee to calm it. "Whoa, easy," I said, breathless. "You're okay." The dog trembled, golden fur, big brown eyes. It pressed against my leg like I was its last hope. My heart softened in a way I didn't expect. I checked the collar and found a silver tag, Max. Under the name was a phone number. I stared at it, thumb hovering. It was late. I didn't want to wake someone up if I could avoid it, but the dog was too scared to just leave. "All right, Max," I muttered. "Let's figure this out." I looked around and spotted a poster on a nearby lamppost. "Lost dog, Max, golden retriever, reward if found. Contact 1147 Willow Drive." The photo matched perfectly. Willow Drive wasn't far, and I knew enough about Chicago already to recognize what that address meant. A ritzy street along the river with big houses and manicured lawns. Places that looked like they belonged to people who never worried about rent. Max tugged forward like he recognized the direction. I looped my belt through his collar as a makeshift leash and started walking. The neighborhood changed as we moved from the casual vibe of Lakeview into quiet streets lined with iron gates and brick facades. Streetlights cast long shadows over wide driveways. The houses looked like something out of a magazine, the kind of money I wasn't used to being near. Number 1147 Saturday at the end of the block. A sprawling two-story with a white fence, flower beds that looked carefully planned, and warm lights glowing from the windows. Max started wagging his tail as we reached the gate. I hesitated for a second, feeling out of place in my faded jeans and sneakers. Then I took a breath and pressed the doorbell. The door opened, and I forgot how to breathe. A woman stood there, mid-30s, brown hair tied back in a loose ponytail, wearing a cream-colored suit that looked a little rumpled, like she'd just come from a long day. Her eyes, blue-green and sharp, widened the moment she saw the dog. "Max!" she breathed. She dropped to her knees right there on the doorstep, arms wrapping around him. Max practically melted into her, licking her cheek, tail wagging like crazy. "Oh my God," she whispered into his fur. "You're back. You scared me so much, buddy. Don't ever do that again." Watching her like that hit me harder than I expected. This woman, who looked strong and put together, was suddenly so vulnerable. It made my chest tighten. Then she looked up at me, wiping her eyes quickly, and a grateful smile broke through. "Thank you," she said, voice shaking just a little. "Thank you so much. You have no idea. He's everything to me." I shrugged, trying to act casual even though my heart was still racing from the chase. "No problem. I found him in the park. He almost got hit by a car." Her face changed, worry flashing. She hugged Max again, then stood and smoothed her suit like she was trying to pull herself together. "Please," she said, stepping aside. "Come in. Let me at least get you something warm. It's freezing out there." I followed her inside, and the house made my apartment feel like a shoebox. High ceilings, hardwood floors, plush couches in a living room that looked like it belonged in a movie. Bookshelves lined with legal books, the kind of space that smelled like money and quiet confidence. She poured me a mug of hot tea and insisted I sit. Max curled up at my feet like he had decided I was safe. "I'm Amanda Vasur," she said, handing me the mug. "I got home from work and the back gate was open. Must have been the wind." I panicked when he wasn't there. Amanda Vasur. The name meant nothing to me yet. Not then. Not in that warm house with Max snoring softly beside my shoe. We chatted for a few minutes. She told me she lived alone with Max, that he'd been her companion through tough times. I told her I was new in town and starting a new job tomorrow. She looked at me with a curious tilt of her head, like she was filing me away in her mind. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door, Max following like he wanted to come with me. Amanda reached into a drawer and pulled out a business card. She pressed it into my hand with a firm look that didn't match how shaken she'd been minutes ago. "I owe you big time, Ryan," she said. "Call if you ever need anything." Then her smile shifted, softer, a little teasing. "And tell me," she added, eyes flicking down to my mouth for one quick second before returning to my eyes, "what reward do you want? A kiss, maybe?" My breath caught, because I had been worried about my first day at a top law firm. But suddenly, all I could think about was the way my life had just cracked open in the middle of the night, right there on a stranger's doorstep, with her dog curled at my feet and her eyes daring me to answer. My mouth went dry. For a second, I just stood there holding her business card like it was the only thing keeping me from floating away. Amanda's question hung in the air, warm and teasing, but her eyes were serious enough to make my heart kick harder. "A kiss," I repeated, trying to sound calm. Max let out a little huff at my feet like he was amused. Amanda's smile widened. "Only if you want it," she said, softer now. "You just saved my dog." "I want to thank you properly." I felt my face heat up. I had chased a dog through Lincoln Park in a hoodie and old sneakers, and now a beautiful woman in a mansion by the river was offering me a kiss like it was the most natural thing in the world. I cleared my throat. "Honestly, I'm just glad he's okay." Amanda studied me like she wasn't used to a man backing away from a moment like this. Then she laughed quietly. Not mean, almost impressed. "So you're a gentleman," she said. "That's rare." "I'm just tired," I said, and it was half true. "And tomorrow is my first day at a new job. I should probably get some sleep." Her eyes sharpened with interest. "New job," she repeated. "What kind?" "I'm a lawyer," I said, and immediately wished I could take it back because it sounded like I was trying to impress her. But Amanda didn't look impressed. She looked curious in a way that made me feel seen. "Lawyer," she said slowly. "Where are you starting?" I hesitated, then shrugged. "Vasher Monroe and Associates." The second the words left my mouth, I saw a flicker in her face. Something quick, a small pause, like she knew exactly what I had just said. Then she smiled again, smooth as ever. "That's a good firm," she said. "You'll do fine." I stared at her. "You know it." Amanda's eyes held mine. "I know a lot of things," she said, and the way she said it made my stomach tighten for reasons I didn't understand yet. Max pressed his head against my leg, and I took it as my excuse to move. "I should go," I said. "Thank you for the tea." Amanda walked me to the door again, and this time she didn't mention the kiss. She just stood there with Max at her side, one hand resting on his head like she was grounding herself. "Ryan," she said, voice gentler now. "Really? Thank you." I nodded. "Good night, Amanda." "Good night," she said. Then she added, with that teasing spark again, "Don't lose my card. I'm serious. If you need anything, call." I left her house with my brain buzzing. The night air felt colder, but my chest still felt warm. I walked back through the quiet streets, glancing at the business card in my hand under the streetlight. Amanda Vasur. The last name was there in bold letters, and for a moment my nerves about the firm returned. Not because of the job anymore, but because of her. Because Chicago was big, but coincidences like that felt too sharp to ignore. Back in my apartment, I set the card on my nightstand and stared at it like it might start talking. I told myself it was nothing, a random connection, a grateful stranger, a flirt that didn't mean anything, but I barely slept. When my alarm went off at 6, it felt like I had just closed my eyes. I showered fast, put on my best suit, and tried to look like I belonged in a city that still didn't feel like mine. The train was packed with commuters, everyone moving like they had somewhere to be, like they had done this 1,000 times. I stood gripping the pole, repeating a calm introduction in my head. I reached the loop, stepped into the glass tower, and stared up at the marble lobby like it was daring me to mess up. The reception area was all clean lines and modern art. A young assistant gave me a badge and pointed me toward conference room A. When I walked in, a dozen new associates were already seated. Fresh faces, sharp suits, nervous smiles. I took a seat near the back and tried to breathe. Then the door swung open. A woman walked in with a stack of folders under her arm, wearing a navy suit that looked perfectly tailored. Hair in a neat bun. Posture straight. Presence so strong the room quieted without anyone saying a word. It was Amanda. My stomach dropped so hard my coffee almost slipped from my hand. She scanned the room like she owned it, like she controlled the air. Then her blue-green eyes landed on me for a split second, and I saw it. Recognition. A flicker of amusement. A faint smile tugged at her mouth before she turned to the group. "Good morning," she said. "I'm Amanda Vasur, managing partner here at Vasur, Monroe & Associates. Welcome to the firm." The room straightened up instantly. Pens came out. Backs got straighter. People looked at her like she was the final boss of their careers. And I just sat there, frozen, realizing I had brought her lost dog home last night. Amanda spoke with calm authority. Firm history, expectations, standards, long hours, high performance. She was warm without being soft, sharp without being cruel. She sounded like someone who had earned every inch of her power. I couldn't stop thinking about the way she had knelt on her porch, crying into Max's fur. When orientation ended, everyone stood and started shaking hands with senior staff. I tried to stay behind. I pretended to check my notes. I acted like my tie needed adjusting. Anything to avoid walking up to her first. It didn't matter. Amanda made her way across the room like she knew exactly where I was. She stopped in front of me and extended her hand, professional and steady. "Ryan Carter," she said. "Pleasure to meet you again." Her voice was calm, but her eyes sparkled like we had a secret. I took her hand and her grip was firm, warm. "Ma'am," I managed, because my brain had stopped working. Amanda's smile deepened just a little. "You don't have to call me that," she said quietly. "Not when we're not in front of everyone." My chest tightened. "I didn't know," I whispered. "I figured," she replied. "You looked like you were about to faint." I let out a nervous breath. "I thought you were just someone who lost her dog." Amanda's eyes softened for a moment. "I am," she said. "I'm also your boss. Welcome to Chicago." I didn't know if I should apologize, laugh, or run. Amanda glanced down at my badge. "First day nerves," she said. "I get it. You did something good last night. Don't let your mind twist it into something bad." I nodded, but my heartbeat wouldn't slow. She leaned in slightly, low enough that no one else could hear. "By the way," she added, "I did text you this morning to thank you again." No reply. I blinked. I didn't get a text. Her eyebrow lifted. Then I must have saved the wrong number when I was panicking. That made me smile despite everything. "Yeah," I said. "You were pretty panicked." Amanda's gaze held mine. "I was," she admitted. "Max is my family." Then her face returned to business. "You'll be assigned to a team today. Work hard, ask questions, And don't try to impress anyone by burning yourself out." I nodded again. "Yes, Amanda." She started to move away, then paused. "And Ryan," she added, voice light but eyes steady, "about that reward." My throat went dry. Amanda's smile returned, slow and dangerous. "We'll talk later." She walked off to greet the other associates like nothing had happened. I stood there, holding my folder, staring after her, trying to understand how my life had shifted overnight. Because I had come to Chicago worried about failing my first day. Now I was more worried about what my boss meant when she said we would talk later, and why the thought of it made my chest feel tight in the best and worst way. The first few days at the firm hit me like a wave I wasn't ready for. Orientation sessions, rules, billing software, confidential files. Everyone around me looked polished and confident, but inside, I felt like a kid wearing a suit that didn't fit. I got assigned to a mid-level associate named Mark, and he didn't waste time being friendly. He handed me research tasks like he was testing how fast I could drown. I threw myself into the work. I stayed late. I double-checked every memo. I read contracts until the words blurred. Part of it was pride. I wanted to prove I belonged here. But another part of it was Amanda. Every time I saw her walk through the halls, something in my chest tightened. She moved like she owned the space. But I knew what she looked like when she was scared. I had seen her on her doorstep with tears on her cheeks, hugging her dog like he was the only thing keeping her standing. We didn't talk much those first days. Not beyond quick professional moments. A nod in the elevator. A short, "good work," when she passed my desk. But every time our eyes met, I felt it. That shared secret. The night in Lincoln Park. Max pressing into my leg, her voice asking me what reward I wanted. One afternoon during a team lunch, Amanda sat across from me like it was no big deal. She asked about my adjustment to the city, her tone casual, but her eyes sharp and searching. "Chicago can be lonely at first," she said. "If you need recommendations, restaurants, places to unwind, just ask." I tried to play it cool. "I've been walking the Riverwalk a little," I said, her mouth curved into a small smile. "Good choice. Max loves it there too." The way she said Max made my chest warm. Like we weren't just talking about a dog, like we were talking about that night, without saying it out loud. By the end of the week, Amanda pulled me into her office for a one-on-one. The room was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. Her desk was neat but busy, with stacks of case files and a framed photo of Max on a shelf behind her. "You're doing well, Ryan," she said, leaning back in her chair. "Your research on the Harlan merger was spot on." I exhaled, relief mixing with nerves. "Thank you. I've been trying to keep up." Amanda's gaze softened for a second. "Don't confuse keeping up with killing yourself," she said. "I can tell when someone is pushing too hard." I nodded, not sure what to say. It felt strange being seen that clearly by someone like her. Then her voice shifted slightly, quieter, more personal. "I meant what I said the other night. If there's anything I can do to help you settle in, mentoring, advice, city life, just say the word." There was a pause that felt heavy, not awkward, charged. I swallowed. "If you're serious about that reward," I said carefully, "maybe I could stop by and see Max sometime." Amanda's face lit up like I'd just given her something she didn't realize she needed. "He'd love that," she said quickly. Then she caught herself and added, calmer, "How about Friday after work? I'll cook something simple." My pulse kicked up. "Friday works." She nodded once, business again. "Good, now get back to work and Ryan." I looked up, her eyes held mine. "Don't overthink everything," she said. I tried to smile. "I'll try." I left her office with my head spinning. On the train ride home, the city lights streaked past the windows, and all I could think about was Friday. Not because of Max. Not only because of Max. Friday came fast. I spent the day buried in documents, but the clock felt louder than usual. When 5 finally hit, I walked out of the building with a bottle of wine in my hand, telling myself it was just a polite gesture, not a date, not anything risky. Amanda's house on Willow Drive looked just as perfect in daylight as it had under porch light. I rang the bell, and Max's bark came through the door right away, excited and loud. Amanda opened the door in jeans and a soft sweater, hair down around her shoulders. She looked younger like this, less like the managing partner and more like the woman who had hugged her dog and thanked me like I'd saved her whole world. "Right on time," she said, smiling. "Max has been pacing by the door." Max bounded out and pushed his head into my hand like we were old friends. I knelt, rubbing his ears. "Hey, buddy," I said. "Missed you too." Amanda watched us with a look that made my throat tighten. She stepped aside and let me in. The house smelled like garlic and herbs. She had pasta simmering, simple and warm, and for a second it felt like I wasn't a stressed new associate in a huge city. It felt like I had stepped into someone's real life. We sat at the kitchen island. Wine poured, plates filled, Max curled up at our feet like he was guarding the moment. Amanda asked about my first week, and I told her the basics. Mark. The workload. How fast everything moved. "You're picking this up faster than most," she said. "But don't burn out. I recognize that drive." I looked down at my glass. Coming from a small town, I feel like I have to prove I'm not out of my depth. Amanda's eyes softened. "I started the same way," she said. "Scrappy. Always working twice as hard. It's a habit that can save you or break you." As the evening went on, the conversation drifted away from work. Amanda started telling me about her path, scholarships, long nights, building her career one step at a time. There was pride in her voice, but also something tired underneath. "I sacrificed a lot," she admitted, staring into her wine. "Friends. Relationships." She paused, then added quietly, "My marriage fell apart because I was always at the office chasing the next win. He left for someone who had time for him." There was no anger in her voice, just quiet truth. "Now it's just me and Max," she said. "He's the one constant that doesn't judge." Something twisted in my chest. "That sounds lonely," I said. She met my eyes. "It is," she said. "But I got used to it." Then she asked, "What about you, Ryan? You don't talk much about your past." I hesitated, but something about her honesty made it hard to hide behind polite answers. "My parents died in a car accident when I was in high school," I said. "No siblings, no close family. I worked odd jobs through college and law school. I've been doing everything on my own for a long time." Amanda's face changed. The sharpness softened into something gentler. She reached across the island, and her hand brushed mine. "That's a heavy load," she said quietly. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for." Max nudged my leg like he was breaking the moment on purpose, and we both laughed, but the warmth stayed. When I left that night, Amanda hugged me lightly at the door. It wasn't long, but it wasn't nothing. "Thanks for coming," she said. It was nice not eating alone. I walked back to my apartment with the city air cold on my face and her touch still on my skin. After that, it became routine. Amanda would text midweek, "Max misses his hero," then dinner Friday. Sometimes I brought takeout, sometimes groceries. We cooked together, we talked. She laughed more around me than she did at the office. I started noticing small things, how she kept my forgotten hoodie in her hall closet, how Max always curled up next to me on the couch, how Amanda's gaze lingered when I left, like she wanted to say something but didn't. Work got heavier too. Amanda put me on a major case, and we spent late hours in conference rooms going through documents. When the building emptied out and the city lights glowed outside the windows, she'd drop the boss mask for a moment. She'd ask how I was holding up. She'd share a quiet joke. Our shoulders brushed when we leaned over the same page, and the contact felt louder than it should have. One evening, after a rough strategy session, I found Amanda alone in her office, head in her hands. She looked up, eyes tired. "Rough day," she murmured. I didn't pry. I just sat across from her and said, "You don't have to talk, but I'm here." Amanda reached across the desk and took my hand. "You make me feel safe," she said quietly. "Like I don't have to be perfect." My chest tightened. I squeezed her hand back, and I realized we weren't just crossing lines anymore. We were walking straight toward something neither of us could pretend wasn't real. Then my phone buzzed later that night as I rode the train home. A message from Amanda. Friday. Come over. Wine. No work talk. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding, because I knew what that meant. It wasn't just dinner anymore. It was the moment we either pulled back or finally stopped pretending. That Friday, I stopped at a little shop on my way to Willow Drive and bought a small bouquet of daisies. Nothing fancy, just something simple that felt honest. I told myself it was a thank you for Max, a thank you for the dinners, a thank you for making Chicago feel less cold, but my heart knew I was bringing them because I wanted to see her smile. When I rang the bell, Max barked like he had been waiting by the door all day. The door opened, and Amanda stood there in a soft sweater and jeans, hair down around her shoulders. She looked relaxed in a way I never saw at the firm. "You didn't have to," she said when she saw the flowers, but her eyes lit up anyway. "I wanted to," I said, and that was the truth. Max pushed past her and ran to me, tail going crazy. I knelt and rubbed his ears, and Amanda watched us with a look that made my chest tighten. Inside, the house felt warm. The fireplace was on, and there was wine on the counter with cheese and crackers already set out. The night felt like it was meant to be quiet and honest, not loud and rushed. We sat at the kitchen island at first, sipping wine, talking about nothing. Favorite books. The best spots along the river. How weird it was that I could already tell which elevator in the building was the slow one. Amanda laughed more than usual. The sound made the room feel softer. Then the conversation slowed, and the silence started to feel heavy in a new way. Amanda swirled her wine and stared at the glass like she was building courage. "I've been thinking about what you said," she said. I set my glass down. "What did I say?" She looked up, blue-green eyes steady. "About loneliness. About doing everything alone." I felt my throat tighten. I meant it. Amanda nodded slowly. "I have spent years telling myself I do not need anyone," she said. "That my work is enough. That if I keep winning, everything else will stop hurting." She paused, and for a moment she looked like the woman on the porch again, the one who had been scared and grateful and honest. "But then you showed up with Max on a leash," she said softly, "and you looked at me like I was just a person." I swallowed. "You are just a person." Amanda's mouth curved into a small, tired smile. "Tell that to the partners." Quote, the words landed hard. "Are they giving you trouble?" I asked. "Not yet," she said, "but they always watch. They always look for weakness. And the truth is, Ryan, what we are doing could complicate everything." My heart pounded. "So what are you saying?" Amanda stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the dark street. Max padded after her and sat by her feet like he knew something important was happening. "I'm saying I want this," she said, voice quiet. "I want you here. I want your stupid jokes and your calm presence and the way you make this house feel less empty." She turned to face me, and her eyes held mine. "But I'm scared," she admitted, "because if this goes wrong, it doesn't just hurt my heart. It hurts my career. It hurts you." I stood too, stepping closer. "I'm scared too," I said, "but pretending it's not real is worse." Amanda's breath caught. "Ryan." I reached for her hand, and she let me take it. Her palm was warm, her grip stronger than I expected, like she was anchoring herself. "I didn't come here to play games," I said. "I came because I care about you." Amanda stared at me like she was deciding whether to step forward or step back. Then she closed the space between us. Her lips met mine in a kiss that started soft, almost careful, then deepened with everything we had been holding back. Her hands slid up to my shoulders. My hands rested at her waist like I was afraid to move too fast and break the moment. When we pulled apart, we stayed close, foreheads almost touching. "That was overdue," she whispered. I smiled, breathless. "Yeah." We didn't rush anything after that. We sat on the couch with Max curled up on the rug in front of the fire. Amanda's head rested against my shoulder, and the room felt quiet in the best way. "People will talk," she said after a while, tracing her finger along my sleeve. "They will say I'm using power. They will say you're climbing." I looked down at her. "Let them," I said. "They don't know us." Amanda exhaled slowly. "They will try to make it a problem anyway." The next week proved she was right. At the firm, I started hearing it in small ways. A comment from someone in the break room about how fast I was getting assigned to major matters. A look that lingered too long when I walked out of Amanda's office after a meeting. Mark pulled me aside one afternoon. "Be careful," he said, not unkindly. "This place eats people alive when they smell a story." I played dumb, but my stomach stayed tight all day. Then one morning, I got a calendar invite from HR. A routine check-in. No details. Just a time and a room number. My hands went cold. Amanda called me into her office right after. She looked calm, but her jaw was tight. "They got an anonymous complaint," she said quietly. "Favoritism, conflict of interest, you and me." I stared at her. "What do we do?" Amanda stood up and walked around her desk, stopping in front of me. "We stay clean," she said. "We stay sharp. We give them nothing but results." "And us?" I asked, voice low. "What happens to us?" Amanda's eyes softened. "We don't disappear," she said. "We just get smarter." For weeks, we moved like we were balancing on a thin line. At work, no private jokes, no lingering looks, no late-night meetings alone unless someone else was nearby. Outside work, we held on tighter, walks by the river with Max, quiet dinners at her place, nights where she rested her head on my chest like she could finally breathe. The pressure peaked during the antitrust case she assigned me to. The deadline was brutal. The team was stretched thin. We worked late, but we kept it professional. One night, the building was nearly empty, and Amanda was in the conference room with a stack of papers, shoulders tense, eyes tired. I brought her coffee without saying a word and set it down beside her. She looked up at me like she was about to break. "This could cost me everything if we lose," she said. I sat across from her and kept my voice steady. "We won't lose," I said. "You're brilliant, and I'm not going anywhere." Her eyes filled with emotion she tried to hide. She reached for my hand under the table, quick and secret. Then the door opened. A senior partner stepped in, eyes flicking from Amanda to me. The room went still. Amanda straightened instantly, voice cool. "We're discussing strategy," she said. "Ryan is heading out." I stood up and left with my heart racing, knowing the storm had finally found us. The next day, HR called me in. They didn't accuse me, not directly. They asked questions with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. How did I get assigned to the case? Did I feel pressured? Did I feel favored? I kept my answers simple. "I'm working hard," I said. "I'm earning my place." Amanda faced the partners on her own. When she came to my apartment that night, she looked pale but determined. She didn't even take off her coat at first. "They want proof we're not compromising the firm," she said. "They want control." I took her hands and held them tight. "Then we give them proof," I said. "In court, on paper, with work they can't argue with." We turned fear into fuel. We worked like our lives depended on it, because in a way, they did. On the day of the hearing, Amanda stood in court like she was made of steel. Her voice was steady. Her arguments were sharp. Every time the other side tried to twist the facts, she cut through them clean. When my research was cited, when a key clause proved our point, I felt the weight lift off my chest. We won. Not barely, strongly. Afterward, the partners congratulated Amanda publicly. The whispers didn't vanish, but they got quieter. Harder to justify when the numbers and outcomes were on our side. That night, Amanda stood in her office with the skyline glowing behind her, and when the door shut, her strength finally cracked into relief. "You saved me again," she whispered. I stepped close and kissed her forehead. We saved each other. Months later, Chicago didn't feel so overwhelming. My apartment still had boxes, but it didn't feel empty anymore. I spent more evenings at Amanda's place than my own. Max greeted me like family every time, tail wagging like he was proud of what he started. One evening, we walked along the Chicago River with Max on his leash, the same path where I found him that first night. The water reflected the city lights like 1,000 little chances. Amanda linked her arm with mine, and I felt her lean into me. "Funny," she said softly. "What?" Quote, "You found my dog," she said. "And somehow, I feel like he found you for me." I smiled, looking down at her. "So, what's my reward now?" Amanda's eyes sparkled. "A kiss," she said. I leaned in and kissed her right there under the streetlights, with the city buzzing around us and Max wagging his tail like he approved. And I knew the truth. The real reward was not the kiss. It was the way her hand stayed in mine, steady and sure, like we were done running from what we felt.